Logan is growing. I don't think that's going to change anytime in the future. Do you favor like a, kind of grow in and grow up or grow out?
I think we definitely need to look at infill. I don't think we can really grow that much more out. I think we are going to have to become more dense and kind of grow upwards. But also, I'm really interested as a landscape architect in how that looks. People have this perception of density, high-rise apartments, mid-rise apartments, clashing with the existing fabric of the community because they're taller than everything else. And that's one way that density can happen. But the truth is, you can densify at a more human scale if you build smaller houses. It's called like missing middle housing typologies that are between the tall apartments and the detached single family homes, exploring how we can introduce those into Logan would be vital. They're more affordable too, and I know housing affordability continues just to be excruciating, honestly, for many of us. I think we really need to start getting creative about how we're building. There's parking minimums associated with building right now, and we don't actually have to have those. And so we could start to eliminate parking or change it in ways and not require so much parking for like future development, which would really help us have space for maybe more meaningful things.
Any issues that you potentially see with parking garages with rooftop parks or rooftop green spaces?
I think that those structures are oftentimes like very expensive, but just having them, I think, would be a really nice option and really like kind of decreases the heat island effect of the city and gives some softness to this otherwise really hard kind of built environment.
Logan's residents don't really have a voice. I'm curious how you might work toward changing that, work toward having Logan residents involved in decisions.
Public engagement is key and it's also complicated. And because we have this situation where it's kind of broken down, in my perspective, then there would be definitely some work needed to kind of repair that. You know, the university has the Carnegie Community Engagement designation. They have experts in engaging communities, facilitators nationally that come and essentially help put those frameworks in place. Essentially, you can just start building frameworks so that people are able to approach the city and really the city's doing the heavy lifting to facilitate that. Getting training for more city officials could really be helpful to facilitate meaningful public engagement. There's an organization called Strong Towns, and they talk a lot about engaging the public and how you can do that well. So I think that there's a lot of examples out there. We would just kind of need to see like what makes sense here, try a few things out and see how people responded. And I think the key is just really being able to listen to people and to hear what they're saying and negotiate that kind of conflict that arises when there are many needs from many people.
So you mentioned green spaces. Do you have any plans or ideas for those? Any plans for the trail system?
The current administration has done a really good job of expanding the trail network, and that has been really great to see and to utilize. I do think that there's still quite a few like disconnects. Our parks feel really disconnected from each other, and like sometimes, you know, you're not really able to get there on a sidewalk or safely, it feels like. And so I would really want to look at how we could create kind of a pedestrian corridor that was connecting green spaces and also where it would make sense to expand or create new parks within the city and just make sure that those are connected too so that people have like a really safe, enjoyable option of like walking or biking to the parks, the Little Logan River. It's kind of been managed as a canal, and there were plans to pipe it originally. That river just really, it runs through a lot of our city parks, and I grew up playing in the river, and I just watch kids playing in it, people sitting by it, like people love it. And there's a lot of research that tells us that having open waterways in our communities has a really positive impact on our overall health. So that to me is something like, wow, we want to really keep that.
Speaking of making parks more accessible, making these trails more accessible with infrastructure, any thoughts on mixed zoning where you have little shops or grocery stores, cafes in neighborhoods, kind of like the island market is in the island area? If that makes sense in other places, and if that would help Logan become more walkable. Who wants to like hop down to like the big box stores that are blocks away when they can just walk across the street or walk down the block and get like a snack or, you know, some small grocery items, whatever they need for dinner that night? I would kill to have like an island market or like a coffee shop right next door. But I also understand the NIMBY, not in my backyard mindset.
I definitely think that that's like a conversation that would be needed to have with the greater community, where those spots would be and where it would make sense. Talking about NIMBYism, I think that people feel like when they're not involved in a process like that, then they're less likely to want to be like, this is great, you know? Or maybe they have some preconceived notions about things that would happen because of it. I think when you can really start to have conversations with people about what that could look like, maybe have some like graphics of what it could look like and just invite this conversation, then you can start to kind of maybe address some of the concerns that people have and get people on board in a way that doesn't happen when it's just like, we're going to do this. We're going to put a store here, you know? But I think Logan has a lot of potential for that. And we used to have little stores all over Logan. Things like that, you know, really could strengthen the local economy too. Spending money at local businesses is like such a good way to just keep the economy really strong and thriving. And I think it's a really important piece of healthy city.
So speaking of like the economy, obviously the job market is very rough right now. I'm curious if you have any ideas for encouraging job making or what you think Logan needs to do differently to build more jobs.
I think that housing really ties into that too. It's hard to invite people to work in the community when they can't find housing in the community. That's really tricky. Just from my personal perspective, it feels like there's kind of a gap. There's a lot of service jobs and jobs that maybe are more like aimed towards college students. And then there's like not as many other jobs. I think we have a hard time retaining people who are graduating from USU unless they're going to work at the university. It just seems like we really might be missing some of those more like career jobs. I think that's really difficult to address and also would be great to try to like do something to encourage like entrepreneurship. I mean, changing things like zoning and encouraging people to start small businesses like the store we were just talking about, that is a real job creator. So it's kind of tied together, you know? If you start fostering really strong quality of life for people, make them really want to live in a place and be supported to live there too, then I think people can start to like explore the opportunities they want with creating businesses and doing things that they'd like to do. And I think that like the farmers market too, having worked there for a number of years, I watched so many businesses get a start there. So I think that that could be used as encouragement for entrepreneurship and business.
I also wanted to kind of quickly ask about government transparency because that has become a much bigger issue over the years. I'm curious if there's anything you would seek to change in terms of government transparency under your administration.
I think that it's really important to have a transparent government and to make that accessible. And that again is part of like the public engagement and really building trust between a government and the people that it's tasked to govern, making sure that people are understanding how the decisions are being made, when they're being made, and like the various stakeholders and groups that are involved in making them, I think is really vital. I think that that's how you create accountability too. You know, if people can really see what you're doing and they don't like it and they can say, hey, we don't want you to do that specific thing that you're doing, you say like, oh, okay. Like, you know, you can respond to it in a way that you can't if people are having a hard time even knowing like what is going on.
ICE has been obviously a big issue. I'm kind of curious if you have any thoughts on Logan's law enforcement agencies partnering with national agencies on immigration.
With ICE in particular, I am pretty strongly opposed to that because it's still allowed that ICE can have their faces covered. They can wear masks in the process of doing their jobs, and I think that throughout history, that's proven to be a really problematic thing, and that it really starts to sow a certain ugliness in a community and really creates a lot of fear and ultimately is just incredibly damaging to communities. I can't see building a partnership with that as beneficial to Logan or to any community, really.
That's a great point. You know, we're talking about transparency in government, people being able to connect and engage with their representatives. Mask wearing kind of flies in the face of a transparent, accountable government. Switching gears now, education. This is a very family-oriented community. Public education is a very big part of child development. Now, what role do you think the mayor should have, if any, in Logan's education?
I feel like I heard that attendance is becoming really problematic. I think like just having a really supportive government can help, like seeking grants for things or creating programs that are partnered with the city that are really supporting students, helping kids, making sure that they have what they need so that they're able to learn and that their families have what they need so that everybody's feeling really supported and taken care of.
Would you say that when families are not worried about like existential issues, like housing, where they're going to get their next meal, things of that nature, would you say that encourages an environment where there is stability that would potentially like increase student attendance or lead to better outcomes for children and families?
I think that is definitely true, that when people, you know, have homes and they have enough food to eat, then they're in a place where they can learn and engage in other things than trying to like constantly get those basic needs met. And I would actually really love to see some school gardens. I know that a little bit of that has been pursued here, but I think that's a great way to start increasing food security for people and then also educating kids on growing food. And it has a lot of benefits too, just in and of itself. I was a farmer for a lot of years and I think I love that it's such a rich environment for kids and it provides so much and creates more of that stability and health and then access to fresh produce that has a lot of really amazing impacts for people.
There's a fair amount of research that shows that, like, you know, kids these days don't get outside as much and they don't play in the dirt like they used to. They don't get as messy in some ways. And there's a fair amount of research that shows that, like, actually, like, getting outside, playing in the dirt is good. It's good for children, especially in regard to, I believe, their immune system, but just also in regard to, like, mental health, physical health is just good to get outside. School gardens, community gardens, ways we can get children interacting with the natural world, with the dirt and the plants and the sun. I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, I think that all of that is definitely true. And it would just be really cool to see it take off here in Logan, I think, and give that to the the kids. Logan has such an agricultural like heritage too. I mean, we're not that many generations away from everybody having a really large garden that they're like canning from and eating from. And so I think we're really starting to like miss that as a society and have this disconnection from our food, and it is having a negative impact on our health. So getting that back into the community and back into spaces where kids are would be really cool. I did want to touch on water a little bit, just
Yeah.
because I think that that's something that is a growing concern and importance in the valley. Logan hasn't like joined with any of these state groups that are like Slow the Flow or like Utah Saves Water in offering rebates to residents who want to convert their lawns or get like a water efficient toilet or put your sprinklers on a smart sprinkler technology. Then there's rebates for all of those. I just would love to see Logan doing some more responsible things around its water use. And I think that it's just important as we move forward and as we grow to just become more and more responsible with our water. We're stewards here of the Bear River, and that's the largest tributary of the Great Salt Lake. And I think, as we all know, the Great Salt Lake is really kind of in a dire situation. And if that ecosystem collapses, I mean, we're gonna really, really suffer. The consequences of that would be really catastrophic for us and the rest of the state. So I guess just really knowing that like we have an impact here, our actions here are really impacting what is happening downstream from us. And I think that we could do a lot more to use our water wisely.
Logan kind of, if I remember right, doubled down on fossil fuels instead of, I think they had an option to seek like nuclear power. I'm kind of curious to your thoughts on energy and power. Do you have concerns about nuclear power, fossil fuels, or ways that you think your administration might look at increasing the adoption of renewable energy in Logan?
I'm definitely in support of like exploring what renewable energy makes sense for Logan. And I don't know if that's something that we can do after this agreement, because it was a lot of, I mean, I think that it was over $500 million, if I'm recalling correctly, that the city has invested over the course of 30 years. That doesn't really align with keeping people healthy. Continuing to invest in fossil fuels is pretty clearly not going to get us to a place we want to go. I was really disappointed in that decision, and not just the decision itself, but also the process that it unfolded, I guess. I think there was a lot of lack of transparency there, and also it was a really big decision that was made very quickly, it seemed. And so I would love to see Logan exploring more how we could invest in solar. That technology has and continues to advance, and that there's really great options there. I mean, I think every energy source has its issues, I guess, but definitely like just starting to move in the direction of renewable energies is really important for all of our safety and health. And I kind of have a lot of mixed feelings about nuclear energy, I guess, just because it is like a clean energy, but then also like it's creating this toxic waste. And where is that going? And it also uses a lot of water to cool the systems. And so when we're facing all of these concerns with water, I don't know if that's really like the right choice.